If you've ever questioned God during tough times, I get it. My faith journey has not been easy, but it's made me who I am today. So I want to share my story with you, how I kept my faith when life felt like it was falling apart and how I live it out daily, not just on Sundays. So what's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Y'all, today I want to share it with you guys. I've shared it before. Some of you guys know my story. Some of you guys know, my testimony. But I want to share it again because I feel like I haven't shared it in a while, and I feel like it's something that God is able to use. And so I wanted to, share it today. So let's get into it, y'all. Hey y'all, what's up? If you guys are new here, what's up? My name is Andrea. If you guys are returning, thank you so much for coming back, y'all. Today, I'm sharing my story. I'm sharing my testimony with you guys. Some of you guys may know it from way back when. I think the last time I shared really in depth of it was in college. And so I just thought it would be a good time to do a little refresh because there's a topic that I want to come out of the story as well. And I just felt like I should pair them together. So, let's do our makeup and chat about what we do when life is tough and how to keep our faith during it. Okay, let's hop in. Okay, y'all, so growing up, I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right off Greenwoods. A lot of history there. If you don't know, look it up. It's where like the Tulsa race riots were. But honestly, at the time, I didn't realize the significance because I was a kid, okay? So I didn't really realize it. But like looking back, I'm like so proud to be from Tulsa. So anywho, yeah, I was a normal kid, grew up in a two-parent household, my mom and my dad. I have a half sister. However, she was my dad's kid before my mom and my dad got married, so she didn't live with us. So I kind of grew up as an only child, which one of my biggest things I've always wanted was siblings, was a sister or a brother, like just a full sister or a brother, and I just didn't get that, and I didn't realize the magnitude of which and why I did it until I got older. So so just had a great little child upbringing. Had my best friend. I still have my same best friend from kindergarten. Like, we're still going strong today. Her name was Savannah. Love her down. Grew up in church. Grew up going to church. It was always a thing. Me and my grandma were like really, really close. My grandpa was there too, but that's another story. So yeah, church was a big part of my life, my upbringing, something we did almost every Sunday. We was at Bible study, Sunday school, all the things, okay? And also, I have a big family. So a good amount of my family also went to the same church. So it was just a vibe, okay? It was so much fun. Shout out to Antioch and Tulsa, okay? Amen. So, normal upbringing to what I thought. But looking back on it, I'm like, no, that actually wasn't very quote unquote normal. So whenever I was in kindergarten or like first grade, I remember my mom being in the hospital, but I don't remember why. And of course I was young, so they didn't really tell me the magnitude of which or why. Okay. But I do remember my aunt coming to my grandma's house, which is where I was staying in that moment. And I remember her handing me this care packet that was really intended for my mom, but she was like, my aunt wasn't at the hospital with my mom. She was there with me. So she gave me this care packet and it had a Pooh Bear in it. Okay. And so that's going to reflect throughout the story. So till this day, I still have the same Pooh Bear, you guys. I love Pooh Bear down for a reason because it represents my mom's strength. So a little older, I realized that my mom was struggling with breast cancer. And I didn't realize the magnitude of it. Like, I was kind of like this like leader of a kid, like this natural born leader, this like strong strength type of girl. And I'll be honest, I was probably because I was a rock for my mom, because my dad, he was a great dad in a way. I'm not gonna hold him. He was a really good dad. Okay, he was a great dad, but a horrible husband. And that's just me telling my full perspective, my full truth of it. Love him down though. Love him down. Okay, and I'm realizing looking back, they did the best that they could. Understand. So yeah, I grew up being kind of the rock for my mom, which is something I would do 10 times over and over and over again. Would do anything for that woman. She worked at a group home, which, if you know, it's kind of like a place for kids who are not in foster home, but they need somewhere to go. So it's like a facility or like a building, I guess, I don't really know what to call it, where it's kind of like a dorm but for kids who are like under 18 and like need somewhere to go that are not like necessarily in foster care. So that was like her heart, and that tells a lot about just her in general. So anywho, I remember once I realized what was really going on, again, I realized my mom was struggling with breast cancer, and so that kind of became our norm. So I spent a lot of weekends, a lot of weeknights, weekdays at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America. And honestly, I didn't mind it because to me, that was our normal. Considering like my mom would drive us up there and stuff, and like they had computers, so I was literally on the computers, like hanging out, like vibing out on the computers until we left, you know what I mean? Like it was a whole little thing. And so I actually didn't mind being up there. They had some good food, so I was always down there getting frozen yogurt, okay? A whole thing. Again, as a kid, did not realize the magnitude of any of this, okay? And so, anywho, I remember her cancer went into remission, but I remember the day that it came back. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember what it looks like. I remember that exact conversation I had with my mom. And I remember I started to cry. And she was like, it's okay, Andrea, like be strong, like etc. right? I just remember she came into my bedroom and she was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know the cancer is back, etc. And granted, y'all, I'm in like 5th grade at this time, or like 6th grade, okay? I'm still young, I'm still a kid. And so, okay, I'm back into rock mode even more than before. And at this point, I learned stuff about my dad, which just, okay, I shouldn't know as a kid, all right? He was just out running the streets. So that's all I'll say about that. But I don't want to do too much on him because I love him down still, but that is a part of the story. So, anywho, so the cancer comes back, you guys, and so we're back at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America. And of course, I skipped the part where we weren't there for a while, but I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't really remember that part. I don't really remember that part. I remember the part where we were at Cancer Treatment Center of America. And so, anywho, we're back there. I'm like, okay, cool. I got this good frozen yogurt, da 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 da. And again, this is from a mind of a kid. So they got the good frozen yogurt. They got the computers. Cool. They got some really nice people up there. I can go draw. I can go do all types of stuff. So I just remember I eventually got into therapy there, and I hated it. Don't remember it. But I just remember I hated it. And from then on, I hated therapy. So something else that I don't know if I mentioned is that I grew up in the church. Like me, my grandma, a lot of my family grew up going to the same church. So it was a whole vibe, okay? I have a huge family. My grandmother had like 5 or 6 siblings. Yeah, 5 or 6 siblings. And so from there, it was a huge family going down. We were all in Tulsa, okay? So yeah, just to keep that in mind, I got a huge family, huge support system and everything like that. So I remember me and my grandmother, we were going to Dallas, which is where I live now. We were coming to Dallas to visit my aunt and my uncle and my cousin. And so we're here in Dallas, we're vibing out. I just remember it was like 4 or 5 a.m. where my aunt and my uncle, they wake me up in the room and they sit me up and they're like, hey, Andrea, we need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. And I'm, again, kid-minded. My mind was such in a place that everything's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be great, which I'm realizing now was more so a trauma thing versus like me being strong. That's why at this point, I'm like, I don't even want to be called quote unquote strong at this point because, so another story. But, so I just remember they wake me up and they're like, hey, we need to talk to you. And I'm like, yeah, you know, what's up? I'm groggy, you know what I mean? And they're like, hey, your dad has passed away. And I'm like, huh? Because I literally talked to him that day before. Like, this is like, he was my fishing buddy. He was like, a lot of the stuff I knew later on, I didn't really know. I didn't know, like, going back. So, like, my dad was like a vibe, y'all. We used to have so much fun. We used to laugh, we used to giggle, cuddle, jump on the bed together. Like, all the different things you would want in a dad, okay, is exactly what he was for me. So, and also he only had girls and I knew he probably wanted a boy and whatever. So I remember I used to like, me and him used to play basketball together, or we used to like go fishing, and I would try to be what accommodated for both my mom and my dad. You know what I mean? So I was, again, people pleasing started very, very young. So, yes, they were like, your dad has passed away. And so they woke me up that early because we were getting put on a flight to go back home, to go back to Tulsa. So I just remember I get in the shower and I'm crying. I'm like trying to comprehend what this even means. Like, I'm not gonna ever see my dad again. What does that look like? Like, huh? I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember me in the shower, like being so confused. Like, are we never gonna go fishing again? Like, I did not understand it because I was young. Okay, I was 13 at the time. I was 13. So then we end up going, we fly back to Tulsa, and I remember I'm on the plane, and I remember I'm looking out of the window, and we're in the clouds, and I think, and I'm like, man, like I'm really close to my dad right now. And it's such a weird thought. It's such like a strange thing. And remember, keep in mind, my mom is battling with cancer in this moment, okay? So I just remember my grandma reaching over and hugging me and being like, it's gonna be okay, sweetheart, and all of that. Remember, my grandma was my girl, okay? Love my grandma. My grandma was a pivotal part of my upbringing of me growing up. Like, I loved being at my grandma's house, like all the things, okay? That was my girl, okay? I would fight anybody with my grandmother. So we were heading back to Tulsa. We finally get back home where my mom is there and now my whole family is there because they all get the news and they're all at my house. And so, you know, I'm just happy to see all of them. And in my mind, you guys, as a kid, I was such like, you know, keep a brave face, you know what I mean? Like, stay strong, be the... And I'm like, thinking back to it, I'm like, I'm 13, trying to keep a brave face after my dad, one of my best friends, just died. Like, huh? Like, why is that even a thought that was in my head? But it was because I grew up being the rock of my mom, which I, again, would do 100 times over for her. I would do anything for her. And so it was not that. I'm not blaming my upbringing for that, okay? But sometimes as kids, if we feel like we have to be strong, it can kind of turn into a trauma response versus like actually getting the help we need to process some of the feelings that we're actually having. And so I get back to my house, all my family is there. We're all just kind of like, you know, hanging out, enjoying each other. Here's the thing, I'm a family girl. I love my family down. So I was more so excited to see my family than I was grieving about my dad. And at different points, it would hit me about what was really happening. And like my sister was there. And so I felt like she was really the only person that could relate to me, considering that we have the same dad. And I so longed to have siblings whenever I was younger. Like my sister was my half sister, so she didn't live with us. So I really, in a way, grew up as an only child. And so one of my like things I wanted so bad were siblings, and like, so I got her as a half sister, but again, we didn't grow up in the same house. So yeah, that's kind of the story of, that's that part of the story with my dad. So since this day, I literally have never been fishing again since going with him and my mom. So then, you guys, I'm back at my school. I loved my school down, you guys. When I tell you, I loved growing up in Tulsa. It was so diverse. It was so rich in culture, so rich in history. It was beautiful. And I didn't realize it at the time, but like, I loved Tulsa. So it was such a family town. Like, honestly, one of the best places to raise a family. Wasn't much to do there, but yeah, good people. I remember I went back to school. And of course people are hearing about it, people are hearing what's going on, so they're like coming up to me, and that's already overwhelming as a kid because I don't really know how to respond. Like, what do I say to like, hey, sorry to hear about your dad, thank you? Like, how do I respond to that? You know what I mean? And also, I was always the kid that wanted to keep this brave face, wanted to look as if everything was normal because I so longed to have this normal life, okay? But I knew it wasn't. There came a point where I knew like, no, this is not necessarily normal because I'm looking at my best friend, I'm looking at other people and their parents are healthy and happy and, you know, all these different things. And like, I'm seeing what I'm seeing in my household and I'm like, no, this is not normal, but I want to pretend like it is. So I go back to school and I'm, you know, acting like everything is okay. And in the moment it was, and I'll be honest, I really do believe God was protecting my heart, was shielding me in these moments. So yeah, so then y'all, 3 months later, I remember my mom, I remember my aunt sat me down and when we were going into my grandmother's house, I don't know why I'm calling my grandmother, I never called her that, my grandma's house. And she was like, Andrea, your mom's not doing well. And I was like, nope, not listening to you. She's fine. She's gonna be fine. She's great. Okay, y'all. But that was my mindset all like growing up the entire time. And I remember she was trying to talk to me, like looking back and like seeing her position that she had to take in that moment because my mom was her best friend, to have to tell her daughter that, hey, your mom's not doing well. I can only imagine how that felt. And then the response that I gave her, because now she's like, okay, well, how do I handle that? Okay. So, a few weeks or like a month or so later, you guys, like my mom ends up not doing well and she ends up on hospice. Okay. I don't know the meaning of any of this. I'm still holding out hope. I'm still praying. Again, I grew up with faith in God. God was literally my best friend, you guys. When I didn't have an imaginary friend. I had God. I would talk to God. Okay. I never had an imaginary friend. Like, God was my quote unquote imaginary friend. And so I'm still holding on to hope and things like that it's going to be fine, you know, etc. So I remember we were sitting in my living room in my house and my mom is on the hospital bed and all my family is there. Okay. In my mind, I'm still holding on to hope. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. It's great. Like, you know, y'all are freaking out for nothing, etc. I literally am watching my mom and I'm watching her chest rise and fall as she's on this hospital bed. And, I remember I looked And I saw her chest rise and fall and never rise again. I literally saw my mom take her last breath from the fireplace in my living room. And the moment that happened, I feel like I was the first one to really see it because I was staring at her. But my cousin, who was a nurse, she notices that whatever was happening, you know, medical wise, she noticed that the breathing had stopped. And so before she even noticed that, I had like took off and went through the dining room area and up to my room because I wanted to be alone, because I knew what that meant, because I saw her chest not rise again for a while. And I was like, oh my God. And so I'm in my room, and now they're realizing I'm missing. Now they can't find me. And so they're looking everywhere. They're outside. They're looking all over the place. And I just needed a moment. And so I remember I was like, what do I do now? If I can talk. She literally passed away on October 27th, and my birthday is October 28th. My mom always made the biggest deal about my birthday, you guys. Like, we used to have like parties and all the things for a birthday, like a kid's birthday, like dream, okay? And so for her to die a day before my birthday, it tainted my birthdays for the next few years. I didn't really want to celebrate, because how do I celebrate when the day before was the day I lost my best friend, you guys? So, anyway, they end up finding me in my room. I'm sitting on the couch in my room, and I just remember my Aunt Joyce, and I remember my cousin Coretta, and I remember just my family coming and surrounding me. Some of them were still downstairs, like caring for my mom. They called the ambulance, and then the other ones were upstairs caring for me. And then from there, I just remember that I went to my grandma's house, and I was staying in the guest bedroom, and I just remember I just turned around and I started crying. And here comes my grandma again. Ooh, hold on now. Ooh, hold on. Pause. Nah, because I'm putting on makeup, so I can't cry. Hold on. Actually, this is a great break because my camera's about to die. So let me change the battery real quick. Okay, y'all, I'm back. Battery is back. I am better. I just remember walking, like, I remember I was in the guest bedroom in my grandma's house, and I remember her, like, she saw me crying. She's like, it's okay, baby. It's going to be okay. She's hugging me. So, yes, I'm going to skip past that so I don't get emotional. So, anywho, so I'm just like, what is going on? I just remember, like, shaking my head, like, what is happening? Like, I just remember, like, all of my family is there. And I'm like, what? Like, not all, but, like, all of my close family. So my grandma and her kids are there, and it's just a lot going on. I'm like, what is going on? Okay. So I remember the next day, again, the next day is my birthday. All right. It's my 14th birthday. And those are formative years for a girl. Like, I'll get to that later. But, yeah, it's my 14th birthday, and I just remember we all go to this restaurant that I loved called Piccadilly's in Tulsa. If you know, Piccadilly's was a vibe. It was like soul food. It was like not a buffet line, but it was like you walk through the line and get what you want, okay? I love Piccadilly's, and I just remember I was so happy to be around my family that I wasn't even processing everything that was really going on. But, like, how does a newly 14-year-old process everything, okay? Like, what does this even look like? So I didn't even know what this all entailed. And so, I'm gonna be honest, you guys, everything from that point on until when I moved to Texas was a blur. And I don't know if that was God's protection. I don't know if that was God, like, shielding my heart and my eyes and my mind. All I do remember is me in the car heading to Texas, okay? And this is a girl who grew up in Tulsa, whose best friend is in Tulsa. I had a little boyfriend at the time, y'all. He was in Tulsa, okay? Thought I loved him so much, y'all. My friends, my dogs, my house, my home. So not only did I lose my parents in a matter of 3 months apart from each other, I lose everything that I know that's familiar. I lose my home. I lose my grandma is still in Tulsa. So I go from being 10 minutes down the street from her to now 4 hours. You know what I mean? Because now I'm in Dallas. And my mom did let me know, like, a little in advance that, like, hey, we may be moving to Dallas, because she knew what was coming, okay? She knew what was coming, but honestly, I admire her strength and I admire her tenacity with everything, because I never knew how bad it was until the last minute. I think we were both holding on hope. So yeah. So anyway, honestly, you guys, the feelings that I felt in those moments was like, Lord, how could you? I've trusted you. I've pleaded with you. I've begged you. and you did nothing. These are my raw thoughts, you guys. Like one thing about it, I have always had a very raw and honest relationship with God, which I feel like has made me the woman I am today, because I'm not afraid to tell God that I'm mad at him, because I know he's not afraid to hear it, because most likely he already knows how I feel. Not most likely, he does. So I'm at the point, I'm not mad at God. I'm adjusting to my new environment. Still have this whole facade that I'm pretending to be okay. When I tell you guys, the level of trauma, the level of the magnitude of what all happened, I don't remember a lot of it. I cannot recount a lot of it because of the level that it happened in. I'm upset. I'm upset. Like, my best friend, my girl, my mom, how could she leave me? How could my dad leave me? The way how my dad died was something that I felt was so unnecessary. And for a long time I battled with that. My mom, okay, you had a disease that, there's no cure for yet. So okay, but the way I honestly struggled with the forgiveness of my dad, because I was like, you left me. You left me. You were so selfish in what you were doing that you decided whatever was going on was bigger, and you didn't even consider all the other options. You didn't even consider all the other things. Y'all, there's so much more to the story that I'm leaving out just for respect for my parents, if I'm being honest. The things that I've processed through, okay? So I'm just in the moment of, God, how could you? Like, what's up? I've been following you since I was young, but since I was a kid, okay? I was baptized young. I got rebaptized when I was like 14 or 15. I was always a girl after God's heart. I was always a kid that loved Jesus. Even though I didn't even understand the magnitude of which, I knew the relationship from a very young age. So yeah, questioning God was a part of it. Questioning everything was a part of it, to be completely honest. Why did her parents live and mine didn't? Like, this is raw and honest, which is why I had a trigger warning at the beginning of this. Raw and honest feelings of how I felt in the moment, okay? So yeah, I struggled with doubt. I struggled with grief. I struggled with grief particularly because I hated counseling. I didn't want to go to counseling. Me going to counseling made me feel worse than I did when I walked in, okay? Because now I'm having to talk about all the things I don't want to talk about. So I hated counseling. And I was a very stubborn little teenager. And honestly, even till this day, last Sunday, my uncle, because I was like, oh, I really like flowers. He was like, really? Since when? And I was like, I don't know. Just like over the past few years. He was like, honestly, do you remember what you told me when you were a teenager? And I was like, no. And he was like, you told me you didn't like flowers because all they do is die. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, well, that was trauma speaking. I'm sorry. There's so many things I had to go back and apologize to my uncle for. They didn't realize what hurt then, but I was hurting and I didn't realize it. I didn't understand how to process what I just went through. How I literally moved from I moved from Tulsa to a suburb of Dallas. So I moved from diverse Tulsa, north side, okay? Mostly black, all right? To a suburb of Dallas. White is all get out, okay? And I love all people, all colors, all shapes, sizes, all the things. But at the time I didn't know how to adjust to that because I was one of 4 black kids in the school. Excuse me? What? Huh? So this happened this was 7th grade. Go to this new school, trying to find my way. Of course, I gravitate to the black kids. Cool, great. And also to move in the middle of the school year, and also it wasn't even like the beginning of middle school. It was like the middle of middle school in 7th grade, in the middle of the school year. So yeah, that's like the bulk of the upbringing part of it. But honestly, you guys, what I wanted to talk about was, in my lowest moments, I had a choice to either run away from God or to run to God. And because of the relationship I believe that I built, and it's not even on me, it's God's grace and God's favor, y'all. I was a little rowdy little kid sometimes. So there was one time I cussed God out and I realized real quick, I was like, no, I'm sorry, Lord, my bad. Okay. I'm telling you guys that because that's a relationship I had with the Lord. I was very honest, very open. He was my best friend. Again, he was like my imaginary best friend whenever I was a kid. So what do you do whenever everything comes crumbling down? again, I had the choice to either run to God or run away. And honestly, I did not know God was my constant in that moment. So I ran to God, and I thank God every day for the grace and the love and the favor that he put on my life to know and to be guided to run to him and not away from him. Because what I dealt with, there were so many questions I had. There were so many things I did not understand. But I chose in those moments that I'm going to trust you despite of me not understanding why this happened to me, why this is my story, why this is now my part of my testimony that I didn't ask for. I was like, I trust you, God. I trust you. I don't understand. I think this is dumb. Why me? But like, okay, here we are. And again, I say that in a way of there was fighting in that. There was grief in that. There was frustration in that. This was not just something I just decided and then I just kept walking along. No. This is something over the years I've walked out, okay? Now the question is, how do you keep the faith whenever your life is falling apart? Again, I felt like my relationship with God was a thing that held me together. I feel like my time with getting to know the Lord, my time with understanding who God is and who he is to me mattered so much. My family held me down. I love my family, y'all. Like, I'm a family girl through and through, always have been, always will be. My family held me down, all right? I don't know. When people say, how did you get through that? I don't know. I don't know. The only thing that I do know, and the only thing that I can say is it was the grace of God. Because I believe he shielded my eyes. He lessened the impact as much that could possibly be. Where, yes, I feel like some of that was me, like trauma with me not remembering, but I also feel like it was a protection strategy from the Lord. I do. I'm not saying I forgot everything at all, but a lot of the hurt part, a lot of the moments in between there, I look back and I don't remember. And so when people ask me how I got through it, it was the grace of God. It was the favor of God. It was the love of God that held me down. That's literally it. So because my foundation was there as a kid, I knew which way to turn, and I knew, hey, I'm mad at you right now, Lord, but the best route is to turn to you and not away from you. So then anyway, you guys, so I am in Texas. Eventually I started high school. One of the things I was really into, I was into basketball and I was into dance. And so whenever I got to high school, I decided like, okay, let me choose which one I wanted, or really in middle school, I was deciding which one I wanted to go after. And I decided to let that be dance. So then in high school, I decided to go out for the varsity drill team, made it, loved it. Like, honestly, you guys, I didn't have a bad high school experience, but I didn't love my high school, if I'm being honest. Like, very similar to what I said before, not diverse at all, whatever. I found my place, found my group of people, and I was good. Like, that was really all that mattered. So yeah, high school was fine. It was cool. The best part of it was dance. Loved it. Okay. I ended up dancing in the Super Bowl. Let me not skip past that part. I danced in Super Bowl 45 with my high school drill team, and it was such an amazing opportunity, such an amazing experience to, one, even go to a Super Bowl, two, to be on the field and be dancing in the halftime show. Excuse me. So cool. So amazing, you guys. And that was my first year on varsity, and so great experience with the dance part of it. That was really my thing in high school, was dance. So I ended up getting into, even when I was little, I used to write my prayers to God. I used to always sign it off with a Jesus fish at the end. I wish I still had that journal. I remember when I was like leaving, I didn't really have a moment to go back to my house and grab the things I wanted to grab that I remember. I don't remember that. I can ask my aunt, but I don't remember that. Because I really wish I had that journal. And because I used to write out all my prayers, and it was like so sweet. And so I was really into like poetry, and I was really into writing, because how I would express myself was through writing when I didn't have the strength enough to speak it or to talk. So yeah, so then in high school, I ended up getting into this journalism class. It's like the high school newspaper or whatever. And we wrote senior columns. And when I tell you guys, that was my first time really talking out loud about my story. And I wrote it in a way of like, you know, I would love for my parents to be able to be here to see me graduate from high school. Like, to have my aunt and uncle is amazing, but nothing replaces your parents. And they've never tried to replace my parents. So they've been very clear about that. And I am so grateful for them for taking in a hurt, like trauma, not trauma filled. I'm not speaking that over myself, but like a girl who just went through trauma, a new teenager trying to figure out life, who would backtalk and just all types of, like, I even till this day, I literally be like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for some of the stuff I said, or like the teenage years where I didn't understand and etc. I'm so sorry for that. And they're like, no, we get it. And I'm like, no, but I need you to hear me. Like, I'm legit sorry. So, I don't think we realize sometimes that our parents or our aunt and uncles are people too, and not just our parents and aunt and uncles, you know? So yeah, but I think too, like looking back on my mom and her strength, I cannot imagine the feeling, and I pray to God I never can relate. I can't imagine the feeling of knowing that you were about to go to the Lord while your kid, because my mama loved me down, okay? While your kid is going to be left on earth, and now knowing her dad is no longer there either. But I give kudos and I give her the utmost respect and the utmost thanks and gratitude for her, because she set me up in a way that some people don't even think about, you guys. She made sure she knew exactly where I was gonna go, exactly how I was gonna go to my aunt and uncle, y'all. Because I had some other trifling family members that tried to come take some papers and try to get custody of me. It was just a whole thing. I'm like, we're already going through a lot, and y'all do this? Some family that I don't even know on my dad's side. Excuse me? No, leave me alone. So anyway, so she knew exactly where I was going to go. She knew all the things. She had all this money set aside. So I literally went to college for free. And like, while that is such a blessing, I would have done anything in the world to have my mom back, to have my dad back. So it was, yes, it was a blessing, but the cost of it and what it came with, I would have sent that back in a heartbeat. But I'm grateful that she thought that through, that she was thinking through things, you guys, like, set up a trust fund for me. But like, even forgetting even all the things she did, like who she was a woman who loved God, who loved people, who loved kids. I ended up going to University of Missouri and loved it. Had an amazing college experience. Like, honestly, I love the University of Missouri. I loved my roommates and my floor mates and just all the people that were a part of my journey and part of my experience at Mizzou. Loved it so freaking much. So I thought I wanted to be a counselor. I thought I wanted to go into psychology. I didn't do that. I ended up going into communications and marketing. Anyway, after college, I end up at this place, and I still don't even know. I think I was Googling like places to work, and this came up, you guys. I ended up at this place called Family Legacy, and y'all, for 5 years, I was able to be a part-time missionary over in Zambia, Africa, ministering to children who were just like me. And honestly, the thought of it brings me to tears. The thought of even being back there with them. I just remember one day I was like holding this little girl, and she was like a teenager, and I remember looking into her eyes, and she was like, they used to call me Auntie Andrea. They were like, Auntie Andrea, she was like, my parents died. And I was like, what? I didn't know that. And I look at her, and I'm looking at her in the eyes of a kid who was the same age I was back then. Ooh, thank you, Lord. And I remember looking into her eyes, and I was like, oh my God, this is a full circle moment. I'm now able to minister and speak life into someone who was me, who was literally me. I had nobody else to relate to at the time. But now I'm able to pour into this little girl and all these other little kids that all the way across the world that were just like me. Honestly, you guys, like, and I'll put some pictures up on the screen of that, because that was honestly one of the most rewarding experiences, the most rewarding jobs I've ever had. I've since then, I have left that company. However, those kids will always be in my heart. I love them so freaking much, you guys. I love them so much. But even thinking about what God was able to do with my story, because like, what in the world? How did I think God would use that? You know what I mean? But God was able to use that and then minister to these little kids, because now these little kids are looking at me like, whoa, you made it out, so can I. So anyway, you guys, such a monumental moment. Like, if you let God use your story, God did not cause it, But man, if you let God use it, he will. Oh my gosh, what the enemy meant for evil, God can turn it and use for good. When I tell you guys, that's exactly what he did in my life. That's exactly what he's doing now. That's why I'm creating content for you guys now, to hopefully encourage some of you guys. If you are going through a situation that you believe is impossible to come out of, I promise you it will get better. I promise you, lean into God. Don't lean away from him. I promise you he can use it if you allow him to. Lean in. It's okay to grieve. Get your frustrations out. God is not mad at your anger. He's not mad at your frustration. He's not upset at you for having emotions. He already knows what you're feeling. Express it to him. God, I'm upset with you. How could you let this happen? Why me? These are all questions I asked him. So be honest, be real with him. You know what I mean? So another thing that I learned, you guys, is that faith is not about having all the answers. It's about understanding that you will never have all the answers. However, you know the one that does, and you're willing to put your blind faith in him. Okay? Like, no one can ever tell me that God is not real. I have seen God move in my life. I have seen God in those tough moments. I have heard audibly, inaudibly from the Lord. Like, I'm telling you guys, lean into God. Even though you're questioning, like, God, how could you let this happen? Why me? Etc. These are questions you can ask. He's not afraid of that. Like, be honest, be real with him. But I'm telling you guys, we are never going to know why everything happens. We live in a fallen world, unfortunately. We live in a fallen world, and a part of that means death, it means grief, it means sadness, it means disappointment, it means tears. There's going to be a day where none of that is possible. None of that. We're going to be in heaven, like where God will wipe all of our tears, where we're going to be happy and living in our best bodies, in a day where I'm reunited with my mom and my dad and my grandma and all the other people that have gone before me. Like, honestly, I truly believe that in this moment, like, God has put me in a position where I know my parents are so proud of me. I know my grandmother is so proud of me. I know, just like, thank you, Lord. Thank you, God. Like, I'm doing my makeup all out of order, y'all, because talking and trying to recount a story with you guys and one as deep as this and do my makeup is crazy work, okay? But we're doing it. So another thing I want to say too is, like, faith is not just about what you do on Sundays. It's about living it out daily. What are you doing daily to spend time with God? What are you doing daily, not just to spend time with God or just to check it off the list, but to build that relationship? How do you have a relationship with somebody who you don't spend no time with? You know what I mean? So spend time with God in those moments that are good and bad, so that you can prepare yourself for whatever life has coming your way, okay? At the end of the day, God is sovereign, God is good, and I just don't know what I would do without God and that relationship that I built and the relationship that I continue to build every single day with him. I'm not perfect. I forget sometimes to spend time with God. I do. With the business and all the different things, none of those are excuses. It's just reality. But at the end of the day, like, we do what we can. You know, we're not beating ourselves up or anything. So some encouragement for you guys. If you are in a moment where you feel like your back is up against the wall, you are at rock bottom. You're at the rock of the rockest bottom, okay? You feel like things are just, like, not going your way. You're not sure how you move forward. I am telling you, God is with you. Even if you don't think you feel it, God is with you. He has never left you. It is the enemy's job to convince you that he has and that he will, but I'm telling you, he will never forsake you. He will never let you walk by yourself, okay? Like, though you may not feel it, I promise you, God is there. He hears you. He's with you. And in those moments, I'll be honest with you guys, the times where I feel like the deepest relationship with God was in the moments where I felt like my back was against the wall. I felt like I was at the rockiest of the rockiest bottom. Is when I cling to the Lord. Is when I saw his face. You know what I mean? I saw his hand move in so many aspects of life, because I decided in that moment to run towards God, not away from him. That does not mean that before that I wasn't running away, okay? But eventually I turned. I eventually turned and spent time with God and fell on my knees and was just talking to God, and I promise you it's going to make you feel better. Like, God is close to the brokenhearted. God is close to those without parents that are dealing with any situation that is hard, that is tough. I don't know how people go through life without Jesus, without God. And that is why I'm so passionate throughout my content to be sure I am sharing my faith with you guys. That I'm sharing my story, not of perfection. I've not walked this earth like perfect. made some big mistakes, some big things that like I know I shouldn't have done. However, God's grace covers that. God's grace is there. And so I'm saying all this to say, you guys, if you feel like you're in a season of loss, of doubt, of feeling distant from God, He's with you and He loves you. Okay? So just know your story is not over. Quite honestly, it could just be beginning. And what if your story was something that then you can then go and talk and testify and minister to someone else? I had no idea when I was a 14-year-old girl going through the grief, the level of which I was going through, that I was going to be able to minister to these kids that were in the same situation that I was. Like, what a blessing. What a moment. I will forever remember that moment where I hugged a little girl and she told me that. Like, yeah. So your story is not over. Let God use it. I promise you it will get better. I cannot promise you that I know when, that you'll know when it gets better, but I can promise you it will get better. Just keep fighting, keep moving. I promise. So now you guys know my story. You know what I've been through. You know what God has brought me through. I want to know a little bit more about you. Okay, this is a community. Okay, I don't want to be here like lecturing to you or just talking to you. I want us to talk together. So share below a moment in which God brought you through something that was really hard, that you either thought you wouldn't make it through, you thought you were at the rockest bottom, and you could have been. Share below in the comments. This is a safe place. I promise you it is a safe place. So share below down below in the comment section. When was the time that God brought you through something that was extremely hard to walk through? Okay, y'all, so that is my story. Thanks for sticking around, for hearing about it. If you want more like faith-based content, let me know. If you have any questions or content ideas you want me to tackle, let me know. Put them down below in the description or the comment section as well, you guys, okay? So I love you to the moon and back, and when I say that, I mean it. So if nobody else has told you I love you today, I got you, okay? I love you, I love you, I love you, and I will see you guys in the next video. Before you go, there's a video that I have right here that I want you to check out because I think it'll help you, okay? I love you. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, y'all.